Hello and welcome to an RPG Architect tutorial. Today we're going to go over the lighting system and explain all the ins and outs so that you know how to use it. So with that said, let's get started. All right, so I'm in the 3D sample project and I'm in the lighting examples map, and I've put the starting point over here in the corner. So when we start the game, it's going to be really dark and you're going to have just a little hint of light over here. So let's start to explain this lighting system and exactly what is needed. The first thing that is absolutely needed is you have to scroll down on the map properties and you have to enable the lighting system. If this is unchecked and we play test, then there will be no light at all, even though we've set it up and all this other stuff. The next thing to do is that when you enable the lighting is you need to pick an ambient and a directional color. So the ambient color, for instance, right now it's black, and that is why it's really black when I'm in this corner when I start up the game. It's because the ambient color is black. The directional color is also black. So let's change these and see what this looks like. Let's go to just say a normal white. And if we play test this, you're going to see that the ambient color is now really white. Now we do still have a directional color black here, but we're going to set this back to black. And then we'll set the directional color. Let's just set it to red. And let's play test on this. And so you can see that while the ambient color is black, it's really dark, the directional color is red. So it's melding, it's melding those two colors kind of together. You can see that the directional is in the where the direction of the shadow is. So if you wanted to adjust these directions right here, you can kind of gauge it by where the shadow is, by where this directional color is coming from. But it's kind of coming from the whole scene, so you have to consider that. And so that's why if you have a dark room, like at the very beginning, it was set to black and black, and that's how you're going to get that dark feeling, just like this. You can also see that the FPS drops quite a bit when you're using lights. So something to keep in mind, if I had this unchecked right here, this would be in the thousands. So, but there's a lot of lights going on here, so I don't think you'd have a problem worrying about adding as many as you need in your game. All right, so now that we know how to get lights started, let's start talking about adding lights. So the first thing that we got to do is we got to have the lights column selected. Now we can do it by clicking on it, or we can press Control 4, and that's going to bring us their shortcut. And then we can simply start to add lights. So over here by the player, I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a new light. And the position is just going to be automatic, but you can adjust it from here. You can also adjust like things like the alpha and the color. But for instance, we just want to leave the settings as they are. So just a 1 tile wide by 1 tile wide, and then with an intensity of 1. We're going to hit OK, and we're just going to see what happens. So we've adjusted nothing. And so you can see that we just have a little blip of a light. We want to start increasing that. So in order to edit a light, you just highlight over it and right click. Or actually, you don't even have to highlight. I think you can just right click on it. Yep. And then you can just edit. And from here, you can start to edit things. So we're just going to increase this to, let's just say 5 and 5 and hit OK and see if that increases it, which it does. And you can also see that the player lights up depending on what direction it's facing that particular light. And then the last thing that I can show is that the intensity, so let's just bring this up to 1 and the maximum of 1. We should see that there is no blurring. It's all just for, okay, so actually what I needed to do is bring it up to the radius. So let's bring it up to 5 and 5. And so you can see that it's just a hard light. So this is more like a spotlight, and that could be useful for something like that. If you wanted the blur though, then you would just want to make sure that this intensity is a little less than the radius. So we like maybe 2, 1, for instance. It would bring out the intensity a little bit, but it would still have a little bit of blur. So you can see the intensity is out a little more than it was, but there's still that circumference blur. All right. So the other thing that we can do is real quick, it's a setting for flickering. And if I just hit OK and play test this, you can see that it starts to flicker. There's no real setting of speed or anything. So hopefully that could get added in early access, but you do have that option at least. And so with this light, we can make it look really nice. Let's say that we don't want it to go all the way, but we want it to go close. So we'll go 4 and 2 See what this looks like. Oh, I still have the flicker on. But yeah, you can see how it just increased the intensity there a little bit. So now what we're going to do is show you how to copy a light. And it's really simple. You just copy it. But for this example, I'm just going to delete this one. And we're going to copy one of these red ones in the lava. Now, when you're copying lights from different layers, there might be some issues that arise. You can see that the red light is definitely on a lower layer where the lava is. So if we were to select this light and copy it, and then paste it by the character, so paste, and playtest, we are not going to see the light. It's not going to show, and that's because we copied it onto the same layer. Now, luckily, there is a nice fix to this. We can just simply snap to current layer, and it will fix the light. Now, one thing I did not mention is that you can actually, in your edit right here, under the Y, you can actually increase this and bring the light up. So we could just increase this to 15. And now the light is up. Remember the light was really intense right here because it was snapped to the ground, but now I have it actually up. So if you change this, you can make more like a spotlight or a point light or however you say it. All right. And so now we can actually just delete this one because we've covered all the passive environment lights, you can say. And now the other ones that we can do, I'm just going to bring the starting point over here. So under entities right here, I'm going to set the starting point. Now, when you set a new starting point, you have to control S because you have to save the game or else it won't recognize that starting point. It's the only kind of placement of things that you have to do. Otherwise, you can have your editor settings and you can have this auto save on playtest. And when you hit playtest, it will save everything. But for some reason, it still doesn't catch the starting point. So maybe that will be changed or maybe it's a engine specific thing. But now the last thing that we can do if we're in this map project is we can see that entities also have lights, right? So they have lights that can follow them and be with them, and that's really nice. They're also really easy to set up. Matter of fact, if we click one and we click into it, we can see that there is just a section for lighting right here. You can pick the color, you can say if it's flickering, you can say that it is a light, of course, and then you can increase all the settings that you need to that we can set in a normal environment light. So we have full access to lighting up entities and all this stuff. Relatively easy. It's really nice. So the last thing that I'll mention real quick is that if you go to F8 database in the video configuration down here, there are some light settings so you can enable it lighting by default when you create a new map. There's also a lighting debug view. So if you click on this and playtest, you're going to have these different views that pop up here. Now, I'm sure this makes sense to some 3D things like this, but I'm not exactly sure how to use this quite yet. But it is kind of cool, and it is something to know that's available. So yeah, you'll find this in the F8 database. And yeah, maybe you'll find how to use it effectively. All right, so that is a wrap about lights. That's everything you really need to know. And so any questions, comments below, Steam forums, Discord will get you figured out. That said, I'll see you at the next video.